Thank you, Computer Voice. So welcome to our career event on this wonderful evening. And what we're doing right now, we're going to be recording it and we're going to upload it to our YouTube channel called psychologyatwork.blog. So people can then watch it at their own leisure. And we have over 40 different workshops already recorded and different sessions. So I'll pop that link later in the comments. I'm very happy to say that we have 4 brilliant speakers that will be on for the next 45 minutes. And then we'll have half an hour of reflection discussions, maybe a cheeky breakout room. We shall see, but definitely some Mentimeter. So I'm very happy to introduce our wonderful speakers, Kay, Grace, Lara, and Sebastian. So which one of you lovely people would like to go first? Come on, the power of self-selecting sample.
I don't mind going first.
Thank you,
Nikki.
Grace.
Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be here this evening. My name is Grace Mansah-Owusu. I'm an organizational psychologist, career coach. Sorry, by the way, there's fireworks going on outside. Career coach. I also have a qualification in psychotherapy and counseling, but currently I work in a role in an executive search firm, but they specialize in working with only for non-for-profit organizations and charities globally. So I work in the leadership and change team, and what I do to support the rest of the organization along with 3 others is support with psychometric assessments for selection, development, team development, senior leader coaching, and any other consulting around organizational effectiveness, as well as diversity inclusion. I've worked for about 15 years in the space, and I can very much attest to a lot of the questions that you already put in your Mentimeter. I can very much relate to it. I've seen it all, heard it all. I also run an organization called the Black Business Psychology Network. You might have seen some of my infographics on LinkedIn, and I've been running that for the last 4 years. And I also work with another organization called the BIP Network, which is Black People in Psychology and Psychiatry, which is trying to kind of broaden and open up the professions to lots of different people, including some people who are on this call. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you, everybody.
Fantastic. Who would like to go next?
I'm happy to go next.
Perfect.
So, hi, I'm Lara Bowditch. I've just put my LinkedIn in the chat, and it comes up as Lara Paul, which is my maiden name. So if there's any confusion on my LinkedIn, it's Lara Paul Bowditch. So either one, hopefully I'll come up if you want to search me. So I have come on here to talk about occupational psychology as a second career. So I did psychology as my first degree, and then I worked my way into the advertising industry, and I've spent the last 16 years working in a creative agency. So a very different perspective to, I guess, perhaps a lot of people on this call. So I worked for the last 16 years with lots of big kind of brand names that you might know of, like Heineken, Strongbow, River Island, Very.co.uk, and I worked with them on the kind of their brand strategy and their creative development. And for me, what I loved about it was it brought in the psychology that I learned in my first degree, because it's all about understanding human behavior and how you can kind of talk to people and their sell to people into your products and talk to your target audience. So from that perspective, I kind of went into it with my psychology degree. But what I also loved about it was people and the connections that you make. And over the years, I actually went into the account management side of a creative agency, and in the account management department, it's all about working with the clients, and it's all about the people, and it's all about making sure that you're putting the processes and things in place to make sure that you're, as a leader in the team, you're helping develop your team to be as good as they can be to help develop the best creative outcome and creative comms for your clients. So I did that for about 16 years and kind of climbed up the account management ladder, which was very structured. It's been actually really interesting moving into this side of thing, which is very different, because in account management, it was you go in, you're an account manager, then a senior account manager, an account director, and the kind of ladder is really clear, and you progress your way up, as I did, to head of account management. And then in that role, which I absolutely loved, I was managing the team, and that's where I kind of really got my kind of teeth into kind of developing people, and I love kind of coaching my team and making sure that they were operating as best as they could for our clients and the output for our clients. And then I was doing that role probably for about 4 years, and then lockdown happened. And I think probably for quite a lot of people, you probably have a very similar experience to me, in that lockdown gave you that kind of time for reflection, gave you a bit of that kind of space to, think about, what you're doing in your career and things like that. And obviously I'd been in advertising for a long time, absolutely loved my career. It was very exciting, very glamorous, got to meet some really interesting people. But I just kind of felt like at the time I wanted to move into something a little bit different in terms of focusing on the people development side of things, because that was always my passion. And so slowly I kind of started thinking about what I could do. And I have this little notebook, which I've taken with me throughout my career, where I always write kind of like little notes, and it just sort of helps prompt me in terms of guiding my journey, just little things that I learn along the way. And I've always had in my notebook just little notes saying that I want to help and develop people to be the best that they can be within the workspace. And I think when I was writing this down like years ago, I didn't necessarily know exactly where that was going to take me. So if you don't know exactly where you want to go with things and you're not 100% clear, don't be afraid by that. I think what I just did was kind of hooked onto different things that I found interesting and that I was passionate about. And slowly I've kind of made that journey to where I am today. And what happened was, during lockdown, I kind of realized that where I'd been writing in my little notebook how I wanted to help people, I'd written like occupational psychology. And I was like, oh, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? And I actually wrote on a post-it note on my that I put in front of my computer. Rather than thinking like what would happen if I do occupational psychology, which I think most people would think, what is it like? A lot of the questions that you've put here, what would it be like? What are the career options? What's your job going to look like the day to day? I kind of flipped it and looked at it from a completely different perspective. And I had a question that I used to ask myself every day: what would happen if I didn't do it? So it kind of really kind of put me into that mindset of like, if I don't do this course, even though I've no idea where it's going to take me and I'm not sure what it's going to look like in a year, 5 years time, me not doing it and not pursuing it, the outcome of that would almost be worse. So that kind of question drove me to slowly start looking into occupational psychology. And I then started kind of, again, if you're making, I think as somebody for the people on the call who've done career changes and on their kind of second and third career, it can be terrifying moving from a really stable career where your career path and what you're doing, to moving into something completely different. So I just kind of took it step by step. I asked myself, right, okay, let's explore the different unis that I wanted to study in. Let's explore how I can have that conversation with my manager at the time, and all these kind of things. And slowly, piece by piece, took me to the point where I was then studying my master's. And then that led me to me doing my master's, then allowed me to transition within the company that I was in into a head of people strategy role, which I was very fortunate to do. So I worked as head of people strategy for a year and a half whilst completing my master's, which was brilliant, because I was able to actually translate everything that I was learning from an academic perspective and put that into practice from a practical perspective in the workplace. So I moved from, rather than looking after the people in the account management function within the company that I was working in, helping the people development across the whole organization, which I absolutely loved, and it was fantastic. So I finished that I actually graduated in January this year and finished that at the same time. Decided to take a bit of time off this year just to kind of pursue personal opportunities. And now I'm kind of, I guess I've got probably quite a lot of similar questions to you guys in terms of what does a career as an occupational psychologist actually look like. I guess I'm coming at it from the point of view of, I've got 16 years behind me, that everything that I've learned in my master's is helped amplify my role and my degree, and I'm helping to sort of move forwards with those. So So yeah, I would just kind of say, just embrace uncertainty. I think I know a lot of the time there's lots of questions and you want to know where you're going and you want to know exactly what you're going to do, and I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I just followed all the things that I was passionate about, and I chat to the people that I get on with really well and connect with people and pursue things that I'm interested in and passionate about. And slowly, I think that's taken me to the place where I am today, where I'm really excited about the opportunities that I've got coming up for me. So yeah, a bit of a different perspective from me, I think, hopefully.
Fantastic. And Sebastian, I can see you have your camera on.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? With the microphones is always a challenge, right? Lara, what an interesting journey. And I have something similar to say, because 30 years ago, I had my first appointment at a private bank in Buenos Aires. And the onboarding process implied that I needed to go through a series of training sessions that they went from being part of a team, working with a client, the legal stuff that you need to know when you work in banking and things like that. So I was doing already, sort of finalizing my first degree in economics by then. I started university a year earlier because I did school from home and things like that. So at that time, if I block my memory a little bit, the world was easy, perfect, everything fall into place. There was a clear path for me for the next 30, 40 years. A member of my family was a bank director, so it was easy for me to picture myself, just following this sort of career. The truth is, nothing like that happened in the last 30 years. Everything was absolutely and completely unexpected, different, but terribly exciting. So if I want to start by saying something is, yes, there will be moments where you're going to feel, like Laura says, the uncertainty, what's going to happen. But embrace that, because it's most likely that what's going to happen after is going to be a good thing. Good thing. We all working together, whether we acknowledge or not, in getting things better for each other. If you manage to tap into that, like it happened to me, you actually gonna find out that yourself and your team is much bigger than what you expected. When I came to the UK, the first realization I had was that I couldn't do the masters that I wanted to do. I didn't have the academic credits. Simple as that, because the equivalences in between countries were not so clear. And also, I needed to pay foreign fees. So I had something that at that time was devastating for me, the news that I couldn't start my university course. Instead, I've had to live in London for 3 years until I gained my home status. And that proved to be quite an experience, because you are in between worlds. You are with a foreign degree, defending yourself in a city where other 7.5 million people are trying to make it. So you need to pull out skills that you never knew you had. And you need to go back to the very basics of who you are as a person. So that brought for me the whole definition of soft skills that I didn't know. The fact that I could speak languages allowed me to work, because I started to work as a customer service trainer at the Natural History Museum. And that's because the whole population of people working at the Natural History Museum was coming from all over the world. So there were Spanish-speaking people, Italian-speaking people, Brazilians. My Portuguese was terrible at that time, but it was functional enough to run a training session. So training was, from then on, the very basics of everything I do. Fast forward to when I managed to complete my degree in psychology and then my master's, training was still there at the core of what I wanted to do. But the complexity of the master's helped me add in all other elements that I have to do with change management and people development. So I spent about 11 years working in local authorities. I was based in Islington, but I work all over the place. Then COVID happens. COVID proved to be the testing ground for a middle-aged person like me, trying to get my head around what to do next. And in the middle of COVID, I got headhunted for the job that I have now, which is with the Catholic Church in England and Wales. I probably want to give you more details later when we have time, but it's all about change. And it's all about, like Lara says, embracing the opportunities for you to change with your role, but equally, yeah, to push yourself to that limit, to be honest enough to say the things that, to admit the things that you have no idea about, because that's where your growth happens. The result, I'm speaking to you today, which is great because I think when you are at the other side of certain things, you realize that there's so much to give and there's so much to share with everybody, particularly with the aim of removing any anxiety that you have as a young person or in a change of career at any time in your life, that is going to affect the way that you see yourself and the decisions that you make. I think. Gita, you there?
Of course I'm there. I'm just reflecting on the deep thoughts about change, and change includes reality, and change in your reality. It's quite meta on a good way. So, and thank you for that, Sebastian. And now,
Welcome.
Kay, over to you.
Thank you. So, hi everyone. My name is Kaemorine Prendergast. I am an occupational psychologist and executive coach, and I work predominantly now, I would say, in the kind of inclusion, DEI space and leadership development. So if we think back to the masters, when I finished actually thinking back to some of the questions on the Menti, it's very much like, oh, I want to work in assessment and development, and it was just set in stone in that way. And then I actually, when I graduated, it was a recession. So it was like that financial crash, and it was very difficult to get roles. So I kind of fell into being an associate at the beginning. So normally you would work, then you would maybe take a break, then become an associate. I went straight into being an associate, doing kind of assessment for selection type work. And I did that a lot, predominantly for the financial sector. And I did that for about 4 years or so, because I had at the time a young baby. My daughter was one when I started my master's, and she was 2 and a bit when I graduated. So I wanted to ensure that I had that flexibility to be able to kind of have good amount of earnings, but then have that break to be able to kind of be a mum and enjoy her a bit more. And from there, again, just like thinking about what I wanted to do and how it happened, I kind of became interested in other things, other areas. So like training, and I saw things around like leadership development, and I ended up working for different organizations, again, as an associate, basically kind of like whetting my appetite for the kind of applying the personality side to actually development as opposed to selection. That was really interesting. And then at the same time as doing my master's, I did a coaching psychology course for a year because that seemed really interesting. And prior to doing my master's, I worked as a kind of job broker for a private company where DWP send people that are long-term unemployed, and you help them to get back into work. And I remember meeting an occupational psychologist there, and he did a lot of coaching with the clients. And I was like, oh, this is something I'm really interested in. And it just seemed like quite a natural complement to the occupational psychology degree. So I've worked for many different kind of organizations. I would say predominantly in the last 6 years, tech. I've worked in the tech sector and not in the UK as well. So I've been fully remote because tech is quite flexible in that way. Working for a Canadian company, and they had, so I don't know if you guys follow tech, but they had tech layoffs 2023. That was a hashtag. It was actually not good. It's not funny. So me and my team, 2,600 of us, got cut in 7 minutes globally last year. And I've gone back into freelancing. So prior to that, I kind of did a lot of work with, so I've done a bit of everything. So let me start. So I've done assessment and development, kind of gone into leadership development. Then I was really interested in how do you develop leaders that are kind of what we'd say non-traditional. So neurodiverse leaders, people of color, women, Black people. And then that's what led me to kind of to the DEI space. I worked for an organization where I learned to diagnose for dyslexia and screen for ADHD. And I actually was starting my chartership process. And then, to be honest, I'm going to be completely frank, I got fed up with the BPS back and forth and changes, and I gave it up. I was just like, this is not working for me. I'm never going to do this thing this time. So that meant that I wasn't able to do the diagnosis anymore, because you need a chartered psychologist to supervise your reports. However, in that, I then discovered kind of my love for working with the neurodiverse population. So how do we help individuals, like neurodiverse professionals in organizations, to develop in their career? I also worked with young offenders in prison who were going to be soon to be released. Like, how do we get them to be aware of their strengths? So the strengths that they use to get into prison, but how do we use it in a positive light? And what are some of the things that you could do? So I did that for a bit. And then that then led me down the path of strongly down the path of DEI, in terms of how do we make organizations more inclusive? So that looks like a consultancy piece, an organization looking at what they're currently doing and kind of making recommendations around what would work, and then designing and delivering some of those interventions. I do a lot of coaching. I do a lot of kind of leadership development programs, designing those or working on those or being a part of a team. I've worked with, I haven't really worked in the public sector, if I'm really honest. It's predominantly been private sector. And that has its benefits, it has its pros and its cons. So I'm going to be completely transparent. For me, I'm a mum, so it means I get more money, so I can go on holiday and I can enjoy my time with my child. However, I feel like there's less bureaucracy in the private sector as well, and things can get done more quickly depending on the kind of organization. So I've worked with lots of kind of digital telcos, technology type organizations. I've done work with leaders in the Gulf, just in short contracts, like, again, developing them and getting them to understand and creating awareness around their leadership style and how they come across and how they lead their teams, and just really helping them to kind of create that awareness of how they lead, what might be potential derailers, and what might help you to get ahead. And I would say now I am been working with professional services, so 2 different professional services organizations, and they almost like they seem the same because it's like they operate from the same playbook, where I'm working with the leaders that are traditionally underrepresented in the organization. So at the kind of director level above, on specific leadership programs. One of them I'm working on now, which is looking at how to foster the kind of leadership behaviors that will help you to navigate to partner level in that particular organization. I'm also doing a lot of coaching on the kind of North American side from previous clients that I've worked with that have reached out. I don't know what happened in September, and everyone was like, oh, can we do a bit of coaching? So that's me. I'm a freelance consultant, essentially. It works really well for me because I like to travel, which means that I can work abroad. So, for example, from June until 5 weeks ago, I worked in the Caribbean, and I was able to do that because I was able to manage my diary and work remotely. And also because of the kind of industries that I enjoy working with, they are all remote or hybrid anyway, so it works out in that way. But hopefully I'll be able to answer some of the questions that I've seen on the Menti, because I've been there. I have been there. I've had many times where I'm just like, I don't want to be a psychologist anymore. I'm just gonna quit. I'm gonna go and open a restaurant. I remember my mum was like, don't be so ridiculous. So that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. And what sort of restaurants would you open, Kay?
So two. One was going to be like a shisha type lounge on the beach in the Caribbean. So my mum was like, go back to the UK and stop being silly, because that's when I had like a little break. I was like, I need a break, and I went there. And then the other one would be like a kind of Caribbean restaurant for the kind of area that I live. But then I was just like, no, I don't really want to. So
Okay,
Pipe
you decided to go international with 2 branches to start with.
dream.
It wasn't a restaurant, it was trying to build a restaurant empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, go large. And I just need to point out, like Sebastian, that comments about the BPS and civil service has really resonated from you, or you listening to comedy or watching cat videos? Which one is it?
No, I mean, this is a case of smiling or laughing for not really crying. I mean, we've been trapped on this bureaucracy of the profession for a long, long time. And I've been around to see lots of changes over the years with the BPS. I was lucky to be a part of those changes, sometimes invited by the consultancy firms that they were working with it. But I keep on saying the same thing. The BPS is as ours as much as we are theirs. So at some point we have to find a breaking ground where we all want to start working together. Towards getting a little bit more clarity about what the profession is going to be. Now, the good news is that no one started in the job needs to worry about it. So, there are many other priorities for everybody in occupational psychology at the beginning. Finding your path, finding your identity first, and then, engage in this, I wouldn't say higher level, but I would say like collective levels, issues that have to do with the identity of the profession itself.
Indeed. And Grace, that seems to be resonating with you.
Everything Sebastian said, I fully concur. Probably the less I say about the BPS, the better, because I could be talking for the next 2 hours. But I agree. I think there's been some news over the last few months around the kind of the future of certain qualifications that the BPS administer and the routes to those. And one of those is organizational psychology. And it's left a lot of people feeling very, very confused, stressed. But as Sebastian said, for those of you that have just finished your masters, you're still on your masters, focus on yourself, focus on creating and finding your niche, understanding what you like, what you don't like, and just experimenting. And I know Nikita's like the best person to say this because he's always saying this on LinkedIn. There's not as many jobs that say organizational psychologist or Occ Psych. So you have to open your horizons as to what jobs you can do. And I've pretty much done all of them. I think all of us together on this call, we've all done all of them. Learning and development. I've worked in education, so I lectured for about 5 years in total, business management level, undergraduate. I've worked as a talent consultant. I worked as a HR project manager, like all sorts of things that you would think, oh, it's got nothing to do with organizational psychology. All of it has. So whatever you can find, do it. And if you don't like it, you can find something else until you figure out what it is that you do like.
Absolutely. And maybe you don't like it 10 years ago, and now you do like it. That can change as well. So now, on that note, what I would like each one of the speakers to share, and then we'll open the Q&A. What's the one thing you wished you knew when you graduated that you know now? Just that little thing, and then we'll open to a Q&A. Who'd like to go first?
I'll go first.
Thank you.
Building my networks. So if I'd known, I mean, I know it now, but if I'd known back then how important you're kind of building your networks and not just doing the superficial, high, blah, 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 just actually building, being intentional about building your network, that I think would have been very useful. And also underestimating the importance of getting mentors and coaches. Coaching when you can afford it later, but mentors, if you can find someone that's willing to mentor you, it doesn't necessarily have to be one person, but if you can find somebody that you aspire to be like, or you admire aspects of their career, or there's things that you believe that you can, learn, but then also offer something in exchange, even though you say you want to offer something, but usually when you mentor someone, they don't want anything back, and you feel a little bit like, oh, I'm taking, but that has really helped me to kind of elevate how I think about how I market myself, how I talk about the things that I do, what I charge. So for me, mentors and building your networks, those are the two things I wish I had known right at the beginning, and then it would have not taken me so long to get to.
Hey, just a quick one. There is a question for you in the chat. Any tips to grow your network?
Me? Oh, okay. So, okay, for those of you that are naturally introverted, I have coaches that I coach that don't like it. I say, if your preference is for that one-to-one connection, I like LinkedIn because to me, it's like soft networking and it's not inauthentic. You intentionally find someone and you just like reach out, find things that you have in common and strike up a conversation. So LinkedIn would be my first place. The next one would be joining groups. So Grace is the kind of leader of the Black Psychology Network. That was really helpful to me because then you get a sense of community, you get to learn about what other people are doing. Whereas I think when you are underrepresented in a field or an organization, you feel like you don't really have the like peers support. So that's helpful. So it could be anything like any kind of common interest groups or and not only just occupational psychology as well, like you have to think outside of it. So there's HR professionals, there's assessment development practitioners. I am actually mentoring someone now that wants to go and work in Qatar and wants to go and work in the kind of Gulf states. So I'm like, okay, where are you looking? What organizations are you looking there? And then we found out that there's like a whole group around occupational psychology in the Middle East, which I didn't know. So these are ways that you could do it virtually. And then again, if there's any in-person type events, it does seem daunting, but just go. Even if you don't talk to a lot of people, if you talk to one or two people, you never know where that can go. But start off, if you're not a person like me, I'm not naturally, I seem like I'm extrovert, but I'm not. Lumina will show you that there's two. But yeah, so my everyday persona comes across as extroverted, but I'm more introverted and I prefer that one-to-one connection. So for me, LinkedIn works, and I'll go to a few events in person because I'm like, oh, I actually like this. It's really interesting. And if you can't think of anything to talk about, because to me, that's what I didn't like. It was the awkwardness around, hi, because I'm old, right? I might not look old, but I'm old. Even though I'm not actually, I'm young, but my age says something else. But back then when it was like, oh, you need to have an elevator pitch. So you need to be able to say who you are and what you do and something interesting that will catch the person in 30 seconds. No, just be yourself. Just be yourself and just find something in the conversation or in introducing yourself that someone says that's interesting and just hook onto that and have a conversation, have a natural, organic, authentic conversation. But yeah, that's my kind of tips. If anyone else.
Brilliant. And me being myself, I'm going to say, Lara, Grace, do you concur? What is your experience?
100%. I was going to say that was going to be my thing about just like leaning into like having the confidence to be yourself and like identifying what your strengths are and kind of leaning into that, because I think what I've been experiencing is like a lot of people don't even really know what occupational psychology is or what business psychology is, and a lot of the time I feel like it's like I've just got to stick with my vision of what I know it's about and what I feel that I can do and achieve, and just keep going with that and based on my strengths and my knowledge and kind of go with that, because otherwise you can get sidetracked with a lot of, I don't know, people not knowing really what you're doing and being like, well, you know, what are you doing with this course and where are you going off to and who are you talking to? And as Grace said, I don't think like there's one clear route to finding a path with this. So I think if you can just kind of like stick to your strengths and what you know you're about and what you're good at and what you're interested in and follow that and just have that confidence and conviction to follow that, hopefully you'll get to a place where it will kind of all work out for you if you're just being yourself.
Grace?
For me, similar to Kay, like there's always events, like obviously everyone's at this event, so this is a good start. And SciPub was yesterday, so like follow Nikita on LinkedIn, obviously. Yeah. I'm assuming you all are because you're all here. And there's always events that he's running and they're fantastic. I've only been to a few. The one I went to last year, absolutely fantastic. I met so many really interesting people and I know I need to go back. So don't shout at me, Nikita. There's also ways, like I've made friends with people at interviews, like assessment centers. I didn't even get the job, but there's one person, he's a really key contact of mine. He's given me work over the last 4 years. And it was only because I went to an interview, it was a full day assessment center, and we just connected and I kept in touch. And that was in 2016, and 2024, we're still in touch now. If I have any work that I think he'd be good at, I always contact him if I've got any advice, or if I need advice, or if I want to co-collaborate, I always get in touch with him. So don't underestimate that conversation that you have with someone. It might be really useful. And I think Olivia has highlighted, she just spoken about wanting to approach people at conferences and it not really landing that well. Unfortunately, that sometimes happens, not just in this profession, but everywhere. But you will find that one person in the room who you gel with, you'll find them, and then that's it. That's all you need. So keep going. I know it's daunting, but yeah, just do it in a way that's authentic to you. Like Kay said, I'm also quite introverted. I don't seem it, but I am too. So if I'm in a room, it's going to take me a while to warm up, and I might not feel comfortable, confident to talk to everybody. And that's something that's definitely been part of my personality my whole life. But if you don't feel like talking to everyone, don't talk to a few people, and then go home and add some of them on LinkedIn, and then you never know what will happen after that. So that's my advice.
Absolutely. I just want to follow up on a couple of points that have been said. I would say one, the mistake I noticed a lot of students do is they want a job rather than work on being employable. And though it might seem like a small change, but you want to basically for people to want to connect with you, to want to work with you. So what was previously mentioned, find what you're interested in. Doesn't matter how geeky. This profession encourages geekiness. If you care about the well-being of firefighters in Wales, great, that's your hobby horse. You care about the human factors and why pilots crash aircraft, that's your hobby horse. And just what you're interested in, and start connecting with people who work in that field. And LinkedIn is fantastic for that. It really is just a beautiful thing. And just find people who work in human factors and just go occupational psychology, human factors, Emirates, British Airways, Qatar, all those airlines, and write personalized requests. But before you do that, here's a little cheeky trick. Oh man, my voice is so hoarse. But the key thing is change your LinkedIn handle underneath your name. So first, put a picture there which actually has your face in it, because most people will be looking at on their phones. So if it's a picture with your background where you can't be seen, please change that. Second, change your handle from like occupational psychology students or aspiring occupational psychologists, fascinated by human factors, Occ Psych MSc, fascinated by well-being, pursuing a career in well-being. Because when you connect to people in the field, they're not going to read the message. They look, okay, is this person relevant? So to me, whenever I get a request from somebody who says, I love psychometrics, I never got a request from anybody who said I love psychometrics. But if I did, in my wildest dreams, I will click that accept so fast, because it's just your shared interests. And that's what's really key. And right now, don't worry about ROI or how you can make it into a profession. Just build on that interest, connect with people in the field, read books in this field, look at YouTube, read articles, share them on your LinkedIn. So when somebody looks at your LinkedIn, they go, oh, not only are they interested in human factors, they also post in videos of Sidney Dekker and stuff like that. So people go, oh, they really care. Because the key thing is that you might think, oh my God, there's so many other students in occupational psychology. How am I going to get that job? How can I stand out? The irony, most students don't do anything to stand out. So it takes very little to stand out, such as a good LinkedIn profile, manners. If people reply, say thanks, nice to meet you. Even if they say, I quite often get an email, do you have any roles? I would be a perfect fit at Goodness of Psychology. I'm like, there's nowhere to fit. It's me and my wife, and we have a business together. But if people ask, do you know of any roles? I was like, of course. So even changing that. And if you reply, sorry, I don't have any roles, nobody ever comes back. Thank you for coming back. Because again, you don't know how the relationships will go. So most people think, okay, if this coffee does not result in a graduate scheme, it's a failure. but and everybody else I compete with, and I will. But as Grace mentioned, connect with people in assessment centers. If people didn't give you that job, still connect, still say thank you. If you had a coffee and that person could not give you any kind of work, that's okay. You have no idea how it plays out. You have no idea where you're going to be in 5-10 years time. Same as everybody on this call. We have 49 people. We have no idea where you're all going to be in 5 years time, and how the connections you make today will benefit from that. Oh, Caroline, you love and hate psychometric song. Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I call it having taste. And oh, you've been doing the dissertation at HDS. Oh, fascinating. A little bit of Hogan in your life. But yeah, but I have other stories about that. But the key thing is that it's a friendly field. I just want to give you one statistic before I hand back. As Kay mentioned about mentors, we still have the mentorship program open at psychologyatwork.blog currently. So you can apply by the end of this week. It's going to close. So go to psychologyatwork.blog and apply if you want a mentor. Even if it says it's for only graduates and nobody's from, yeah. If you're a student, also try applying. You never know. It's good to push the boundary a little bit. And sometimes it's good to be cheeky. Just we will find you a mentor. So when we set it up 5 years ago, we thought we'll get 20 mentors. We got 120 within a week. This field is full of good people who want to help each other, and most of us struggled finding a role. I was just talking to somebody yesterday who's probably been in career 40, 50 years. I still remember how hard it was for me to find my first job. And so when you do say it openly, like, I'm struggling navigating this field, you have no idea just what resonance it will have. Just be honest. And by the way, another top tip, never start your cover letter with "I'm passionate about psychology," because everybody writes that. I was once chatting with a mentor. She went to a psychology conference. I was like, "Wendy, how was it?" She goes, "I met so many people who said they're passionate about psychology." I go, "Yeah, it's a psychology conference. That's what they say." He goes, I just wish if I only met one person who said they're psychological about passion. So yeah, perfect. And on that note, any questions, reflections? Feel free to unmute yourself and jump in.
Nikita, we have a question about.
There's quite a few in the
Sorry.
chat.
Yeah, exactly. There is something about job hopping that I would like to elaborate a little bit on that. Like I said to you guys, I have 3 years until I actually started my degree. And when I was ready to jump into a brick and mortar university in the UK, and I have all the credentials, all the qualifications, I decided not. I enjoyed those 3 years working in London in anything related to economics of psychology at the time, but always on the training side of things, that I decided to go for the Open University. I didn't want to stop my my career that it was taking off, because that's the other angle. You build a career, but it's a little bit like at the end of the road. So you bring in, after you've done a few jobs, you bring in all those transferable skills to the next interview. So don't be too afraid of experimenting in the world of work. It's going to season, basically. It's going to give you the awareness that there are good managers and bad managers. That's the other question. That there are good co-workers and bad co-workers. That experience is what is going to be the building blocks of your soft skills, that they're going to be the building block of your professional skills in the future. So give yourself the time to experiment. And the moment you feel that the job is not a good fit for you, move on. There is always someone else, willing to listen to what you have to say, as long as you have something interesting to say, is what Nikki said.
Can I add to that as well? I think I've worked in so many different roles over the years. I've worked in recruitment roles, and I've heard that time and time again around, oh, if I'm in the role less than 2 years or less than a year, and I leave, it's going to look bad on my CV. Newsflash, I feel like if you are going for a job and that's the reason why they're rejecting you, then you probably shouldn't be working there. Mainly because there is this old adage, and I did my PhD research on career theories, that we should stay in that job for life idea. It's gone. It went like 10 years ago, to be honest. I think people are privileged if they're able to stay in a role or an organization for that long. I think it's a fantastic thing, and I'm not knocking it, but the current world of work has changed, and the climate is so hostile sometimes. It means that people with less experience get a really raw deal. So like Kate, I graduated from my master's during that horrible recession, and that first year after my master's, I think I had 4 jobs. I can't remember. And I've worked everywhere and done everything because, and if people look at my CV, sometimes they did think, oh, you had so many jobs. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't out of choice. It's because I didn't have a choice often. And it's made me who I am. It's made me have a really rich platform and level of understanding of different industries, different roles, different organizations, different countries. When Nikita was talking about ambulance people, I think, or firefighters, I actually did a role 18 months, which was a maternity cover role working at the Rail Safety Standards Boards, because they work with ergonomists and human factors people. And the role itself was interesting. The people weren't so interesting, but the role, I learned so much. So now every time I go on a train, if I'm on the underground, I'm a geek for looking at safety breaches. So anyone running on the platform, I'll give you a dirty look because I'm like, you're going to hurt yourself. Then there's going to be a train delay. So it's given me such an insight. So yeah, don't worry about job hopping. Just do what you need to do to survive.
Yeah.
That's a cheerful note. Do everything you can to survive. And we have Danielle. You have a question. You have your hand raised. Care to-
Yes. Hi, Nikita. Hi, everyone on the panel as well. Thank you so much for doing this, because I've been speaking with you recently and I've been kind of like, how can I navigate the field? Like, what do I need to do? And you all have given some really good tips that I have been taken on board. So I'm happy about that. But I've got like 3 questions, and one of them, sorry, I've got a young toddler right now. Are there any areas like within occupational psychology, so like within assessment, leadership and development, that you guys see a demand in? Like, is there any areas that you would say that there's a real demand here? I know there's a demand across the field because occupational psychology is so kind of, it's a huge field. But do you see a demand in any area, and can you give us any tips on that? And I've got another question, so I don't know if I should ask it now or wait for everyone to answer that. Just shoot them off.
Go for
And
this.
the next one would be, are there any like challenges that you've seen for kind of newly graduates or people that are coming into the field? And can you give us any tips on how to possibly overcome them? Like, it could be one tip, or it could be one thing that you've seen that has really stood out when you're seeing people that are entering within the field.
I can tell you from experience, Danielle, that there is a strong shift into well-being understood as mental health. You know, we had a little joke yesterday about all these stressors that we're looking at things, but there are real-world consequences for burnout and for the neglect that some employers are happy to pursue because they think that that's the status quo. Things shouldn't change. You know, I work in an organization that now is starting to wake up to the need of taking care of the human being that is inside the organization. They used to do that with a paid staff, and now they are thinking about everybody else. You know, particularly volunteers.
Yeah.
I think COVID opened the conversation to understand that not everybody is as strong as we think we are. I personally have a diagnosis after COVID of low mood and depression. So, you know, and I work really hard today to remove the stigma around mental health. So This Is Me is one of the initiatives of the Lord Mayor in London. I attended a couple of events for the guys, and you can see that if you pop in, if you have a look at what they say, and you can see how this is starting to permeate in the city, because it's the Lord Mayor of London initiative. So the city are starting to awake that, you know, the banana and the gym membership is not going to do it. We're going to have to think a little bit further on that. And something that it was essentially clinical in perspective before, now is starting to turn into the occupational psychology side of things, because they're starting to realize that it's not just one factor. There are many other things that it needs to be considered on the lifelong, you know, sort of employee life, you know, from onboarding all the way to dismissal. So I am personally thinking about focusing on that in the future, if it's any help.
Yeah.
Because I see that there is a lot of ground to cover potentially.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Sebastian.
And
Most
on
welcome.
that note, follow Affinity Health at Work. The one
Yes, I will.
Rachel runs, they're brilliant, and they have a graduate scheme in Occ Psych in well-being, and they also have internships.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody cares to jump in? Grace?
Yeah, I've got a question for you.
One moment, hold that fire while Grace answers the previous one. Just
Thank you. When you say demand, Danielle, I think Sebastian's point is really key. In terms of well-being, that's definitely an area that we can slip into, especially because a lot of people that do Occ Psych sometimes have a background and had a desire to work in clinical settings. So if you've got any clinical experience and you want to transfer that onto Occ Psych, that works really, really well. And also in terms of areas of demand, I think there's a demand for good practitioners. There's a lack of good, very well-trained, evidence-based practitioners, and Occ Psych gives you a lot of the skills that's needed to work well, work well in an organization and diagnose problems within an organization and come up with solutions. What I'm seeing is a lot of people, and I don't want to badmouth anyone or any profession, but there's a lot of hacks. There's a lot of people who profess to do what we do, but they unfortunately or fortunately, they can't do what we do, and they don't do what we do very well. So with your background assessment, get some kind of assessment qualification, even if it's just one, do it. It's an investment. Leadership development, there's a lot of people who think they're good leadership development people, but they're not. And so if that's your area or niche, study it, learn it, buy a few books, go on YouTube and figure out how you can do those facilitations and workshops in a unique way.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that.
just as a little plug-in, if you want a cheap, not cheap, well-priced qualification in level 1 and 2, go with Podium Assessments.
Okay, can
Their
you put the link in?
is under 1,000, and for students it's half price, last time I checked. So you can get level 1 and 2 qualification in psychometrics for a few £100. You know, you can't really beat that. So, and if you're interested to get cheeky discounts, talk to me. We have a nice list and relationships with publishers, put it this way. So, and never accept full price, always barter. Whatever qualification you're getting, never accept the first quote, always barter. I've worked for enough publishers to say that. And I just wanted to add that it doesn't matter what's in demand right now. Apply to the jobs that exist right now.
Yeah. No, that's true, Nikita. That's true.
And what's going to be in demand? Always psychometrics, because when life is good and there's lots of money in the kitty, there's psychometrics being used for development. When times are bad and there's lots of applicants per place, psychometrics are used in selection. So psychometrics are a little buoyant little industry. And they don't only look for graduate jobs, also look for account management jobs, sales, admin, doesn't matter, just get in there. And then from that, you can always leave that job. I started working building IT assessments, like background of building reports. I spent 50% on conscientiousness. I have half an hour of willpower a day. And I was doing something that required attention to detail and was repetitive and boring. I quit within 3 months to a better job, but I was happy to have it. And I now really appreciate the pain of development of psychometric reports in the background. So it's all good, and you don't need the job for the rest of your life. But so challenges people have, I often find students like, do I want to do human factors for the rest of my life? Or do I need to go into recruitment or HR? Should I go down CIPD? Should I go down Occ Psych route? Should I get chartered? And like, all good questions, but first you need a job.
Yeah.
And any experience is relevant because it's all work. So whether it's recruitment, and just think, can I see myself, can I interest in doing this role for 1 or 2 years? That's it, not for the rest of your life. Just for 1, 2 years, see if you like it. Sebastian mentioned that experience might change you as well. Maybe you grow to like it, maybe you grow to hate it. All useful data in your career navigation, but don't cancel yourself out. And I'll just tell one story before we go to wonderful question. And that was, I was working in Switzerland at this point with kids with special needs while I was doing my MSc on pilots. And there was a graduate scheme at an airline in UK. And I passed to the last stage. So it was an assessment center for a day. And I aced the psychometrics. All of this, by the way, practice your psychometrics, assessment day, etc. Get those percentiles up. If you're not scoring top percentile in ability assessments, you're doing yourself a disservice. And if you have any neurodiverse conditions, disclose them ASAP as the application goes. You know, and if they don't have a box to disclose it in, write that they should. That's your first bit of consultancy to them. Basically, what happened is that I did another 3 hours of psychometrics, and without lunch and water, I was put into an interview. Like, nobody canceled Maslow. Look after your applicants. And then when I was asked, can you give a reliability and validity measure in layman's terms? I couldn't think of a better example than wearing high heels and schizophrenia. It wasn't my finest moment. I didn't get the job, but I got fantastic feedback from one of the raters, which really helped me to update my performance and get that job at SHL doing the reports. It was my 10th application to SHL. So if you fail once, apply again to a different role. It doesn't matter with most places. And then I cried like 2 nights into the pillow because I thought my job of profiling pilots and flying around the world was trashed. And then I was working at Hographa a few years later at a dinner at the DOP. And I realized the person sitting next to me was the one who got the job. So I turned to them. I go, you must have the best life ever. You fly around the world. You profile pilots. It's a high consequence environment. You must have so much freedom with assessments you pick. It must be just beautiful. She goes, what in the world gave you the idea this is my job? And I go, right. What is your job? I profile middle management. I don't have access to flight crew. I don't get to choose what assessments I use. Why did you think this is my role? I go, oh my God. The role I was crying into a pillow for 2 days never existed. I probably should have read the job description. But sometimes when that rejection hurts, which you feel rejected and denied something that might have never existed in the first place. So, like, if that takes a pinch out, and by the way, anybody here has imposter syndrome and inner critic? Anybody here?
Me.
Excellent. You know what's the really good news about having imposter syndrome and inner critic? What's really good? It means you're not a psychopath. Psychopaths don't have that. So next time you feel critical of yourself, just go, well, at least I'm not a psychopath. So that's something. And on that note, we had somebody with a question. If you can unmute yourself, and jump in. Michael, I believe.
Yes, I'm in the United States, and I'm currently looking. I graduate next month with my master's in Occ Psych, and my career has been so far. I've spent 20 years as a restaurant owner, and then moved into retail management for the last 9 years, prior to going, completing my degrees. I've heard a lot of you mention things about starting off in HR and things like that. And that's what I'm finding is mostly available career-wise over here. But I want to know if any of you know, is it worth it to go through like getting certified through trade organizations such as Society for Human Right or Human Resource Management or anything like that? Do those certifications or letters after the name help in any way?
Sorry, I can answer, but please ignore the fireworks outside. It's not any firearms, it's fireworks. Michael, your question is really interesting, and I wanted to answer it. I saw it in the chat because myself and Kaemorine have had these conversations before. Because in the UK, it's quite similar. You come out of an MSc in Occ Psych and you think, oh, like there's loads of roles in HR. Should I just do that? Do I need, our equivalent is CIPD. I thought about doing it, and then I also realized that I didn't want to pay for another qualification because I had already spent loads on my Occ Psych degree. So I was like, I'm not doing it again. I think in your experience, you've had how 30 years of restaurant, like you've got the skills, the skills, you've managed people, you've created teams, you've developed people, you've dealt with really like high pressure situations. I think it's about tailoring your experience to those Occ Psych roles. Again, I'm not in America, so I can't give you all the answers, but I don't think you would necessarily need to have a HR qualification in my opinion. But everybody else, let me know what you think.
Thank you for that. But
and I'll add something as well. So I think there is if you can't get a direct like IO role, you can go into HR, because that does help you to understand how. So I always say, you know, when you have money, you'll get an occupational psychologist. When you don't have money, you'll use HR. That sounds really bad. Sorry to any HR people. We cost more because we're evidence-based. So I describe it as, we develop the tools that you use, and the ways of how you do assessments, and the way of how best practice is psychologists that did that research. So if you want to see the other end of it and how that's used, get some experience. If you can get a job in HR, as to Grace's point, you've developed teams, you've practically done what you would do in a HR role. So just again, get that experience, to have that on your CV if that's what you're trying to kind of do to build your kind of career path. But I would say the only thing that you would probably need to get accredited in or certified in, to Nikita's point, is like a good psychometric or psychometrics that will help you. Once you then go and get the role that you want, you can then, not only are you able to translate to non-psychologists the benefits of why we do certain things, or why you would use a particular tool, or why it's important to kind of have predictive validity in your assessment design process. It will also help you to know how to navigate some of the kind of not difficult, but sometimes quite tricky cross functions that you'll have to collaborate with, because you would have had that experience working in HR, and you'd have had that experience from your business. It's just now you have that additional knowledge of being an occupational psychologist, and you can say, well, this is how we add more value. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
And Michael, just building on that, this restaurant experience is also quite handy. There is one of the biggest names in our field, his side business, he has 7 restaurants. So you have something to have a chat with him about. And I can give you the name later. But the key thing is that Michael joined the chat by Lee Crossan this evening. So it's going to be in 3 hours. So the Occ Psych pop-up networking event stateside. So I just sent you details by the message. And if anybody else wants to join it, I just posted it on my LinkedIn page, so you can visit it and join it.
Thank you.
Actually, there's IO practitioners there from all walks of life, doing all sorts of different stuff, and it's a friendly bunch. And then where are you based?
I'm in Virginia, Yorktown, Virginia.
It's a bit far from Denver, if geography.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a
A little
4-hour
bit.
flight, though.
Yeah, I would go to PsyOp in April. And there's 5,000 to 8,000 IO psychologists coming there.
Awesome. Okay.
And it's a brilliant place to network for 3 days. And as was previously mentioned, having that experience of building teams, etc., you have a lot of transferable skills you built over the years. But it's building on that, because sometimes what I find, especially with second careers, your master's feels it multiplies your previous experience by 0.
Mhm.
It has like no registers that it matters. And I have people with 20, 30 years experience coming. It's like, I cannot do anything after this MSc. And all because it doesn't take your experience into account. So your experience has value. Just finding the way to leverage it as best as you can. Also potentially work with businesses that specialize in restaurant work, that they're most likely to find value in your previous experience. Any consultancies that the L&D departments work as, any psychometrics they use, etc. So try to kind of navigate building on your previous experience and pivoting rather than starting anew. That'd be my words of advice. And I never did that, but Laura, you actually are doing this right now as we speak. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I'm literally sort of pivoting as we speak, and I think for me, I feel more comfortable sticking in the industry that I've been in for the last 16 years. So I think that's probably that's the contacts I have, that's the network I have, and that for me, that's probably going to be the easiest. So I think your point about tapping into the existing industry is a really relevant one. I think for me, it is where I feel most comfortable. I've had leadership positions in the industry, and I therefore know what it takes to then work your way up into those roles within the creative industry. So for me, I just feel like, I feel much more confident that over time, maybe, I could, develop into other areas. But I think, yeah, leaning into what you feel comfortable in, and what I'm trying to do is basically kind of like tailor and try and help people take them on the journey to understand the skills that I've had over the last 16 years and help them understand how that is relevant combined with my master's. So I think there's lots of stuff that I've done over the years that taps into, that has kind of led me into this occupational psychology, because it's tapped into the skills of leadership, change management, having those kind of difficult conversations with people, progressing people, talent management, all that kind of stuff, recruitment, all of that I've done in my job. But what I didn't have is that kind of tangible kind of credible qualification, and that's why I then went into my master's to try and give me that kind of background. So I think it's trying to kind of marry those things together, of the qualification that you've got and then all those years of experience that you might have along the way, and just trying to help people see that, you're not starting afresh, you're not fresh off the blocks. There's stuff that you've done before, and I think they complement each other really well, to be honest. But it's just helping people see that, I guess.
All right, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lara. And thank you, Richard, for positive reinforcement. And Monica, I notice you have a question.
Hi, can you hear me? Thank you. So I am on the beginning of the journey, undergraduate third year. I have the same 24 years work experience, but I'm in the housekeeping field. I try to change and was rejection after rejection. So it's okay. I survive it and make me more nervous and angry and pissed off to keep trying and not giving up. So that's what I observed, that is the best, which pay off. My question is related to the undergraduate level. If is any way to publish some work, like peer review or something in the field, but special for undergraduate, because everyone is telling me that it's for postgraduate, it's for master. Okay, I am child, okay, but I would like to do something in this area, starting from the undergraduate, but I don't know if it's anything possible which is accredited and it's relevant, and to try to build up the disadvantage in advantage. Thank you.
So anybody
I would venture a quick question, a quick answer to that, which is you need to volunteer with people who have your same research interests.
Okay.
So, and it's most likely that you're going to find that in a charitable sector. We work with a lot of individual organizations across the world that they do serve specific groups. So think about, for example, one of the initiatives that we're running at the moment is called Human Trafficking and Modern Slavery. And that is a global problem, but we want to see exactly what the picture is like for the UK. And we managed to get not just one, but about a dozen of several charities around the UK interested in the matter. And they have volunteered their resources to do the research geographically where their remit is. So my office is going to work now as the office of bringing everything together, processing the data, making sure that we get the lessons that they are useful for the community. We're looking at, equipping around 30,000 volunteers across the church with the appropriate knowledge when it comes to modern slavery, and not just that statutory content that is floating around the internet. So that question, and you're going to hear this word a lot from now on, is it depends. So it depends in this case of your research interest, what you want to find out. I think that my apply in here is that phrase that it says, if you build it, they will come. So build yourself a reputation of interested in a particular area, and people are going to come over, make a lot of noise on the internet, use Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and express your willingness to explore a particular area. They will come to you. Like-minded people nowadays are willing to look into things, and they're going to get you started somewhere. So be confident, I think.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to add anything?
I've just got a few questions, Monica, in terms of like it just be like how interrogate why you want to do the research. What's the purpose of the research? Can you get that information from working in those areas? So research doesn't always have to be something that you publish, because personally, that publishing route can take a long time. You can work in those areas, volunteer in those areas, get that information that you need or want, and then write a blog post. I've got like 2 blogs. I've had them for years. Or you could start a podcast or something like that, that you're still doing research, but it's not in the academic form of research, which is not always, it's not always the only way you can share information. So yeah, think about other ways. And also to Sebastian's point around charities, before this role that I'm in now, I spent 3.5 years working at the British Heart Foundation. I worked in talent management, early careers talent. And it was one of the best organizations I've ever worked in, and the longest job role that I've had so far. So charities in the UK are really rife. There's big ones, small ones. There's lots of opportunities in those areas, in that industry. So also explore what you can do in them. It might not be an Occ Psych role, where it says Occ Psych, but they have talent, they do recruitment, they do employee relations. There's so many things that they do, like everywhere else. So if that's what you're passionate about, definitely go for
What
it.
you would advise, if my main dizziness is the problem solving. So it's not the psychometric test, it's not, the paperwork, it's more related. So when someone hire on the HR, then after 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, the person is leaving and no one knows why. But
Retention.
the big boss have no idea that is the line manager or the supervisor who is making the life hell. And that I love, just it's my eyes is going like crazy. It's that passion to catch that what is working wrong. And I'm sorry, it's just that it's my main goal. I was suffering so much in the 20 years. I know how it is to suffer from someone who is not in the right position and is making life hell of so many companies. That's why I have this passion to kick the ass who doesn't, or if you want to upskill yourself, but to highlight for the big boss that, look, that is the problem.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you give them 2 choices, either upskill or I kick your ass. Interesting motivation paradox.
And most of the time, Monica, the big bosses know exactly why people are leaving. They just don't want to change. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand why there's retention issues. Usually it's a toxic work environment.
Yes.
Usually there's a bad boss. They all know it. So yeah, retention and talent acquisition and talent development is an area that there's so much research, there's so many books. So there's a lot of stuff that you can use to understand why.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're doing an undergrad, still apply to our mentoring program application.
I have already one succeeded, but I have to wait till September next year to start it. So it's a 1 graduate position on the company, which I never dreamed that I will succeed. I was like, just, okay, fucking hell, sorry, I will apply. And I get through the psychometric, I get through the everything, and then I get the letter. So I get so many rejection in the past, and I get the letter, and my eyes was growing 20% when I read it. That thank you, was very hard, the process. So be proud of yourself that you succeeded. And I was like, what the So that's why I say that it's okay for September. Will be challenging, I know, but never mind, because that is my dream. So but the publishing part is another one what doesn't let me. So it's something in my brain which kick me all the time that is the next step. And what
Absolutely.
you have in your mind, let it dream big, because it's yours, it's your dream, it's not on anyone else. So if you tell it to someone in the coffee shop, they will look at to you like you are crazy. You have to go to the mental health. It's your dream.
So well done on chasing it and being successful. And if you need any
Thank
help,
you.
there's a mentoring program. But well done, Monica. Brilliant. And Grace, if you have any fireworks in the background, you can switch it on to celebrate Monica's achievement. Perfect.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Jasper, you've been holding your hand conscientiously.
Yes, hi. I was just wondering, outside of internships, what advice would you have for someone who has graduated from an undergraduate psychology degree or course and has completed a master's in business psychology and is starting to look into starting work in business and occupational psychology? Can people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm
Thank you.
laughing because Nikita put something in the chat, so that might be helpful. I think we said this before, just any job that you're interested in, think of the area of Occ Psych that you're most interested in,
Okay.
and then
Sure.
look at jobs with those words in. So for example, if it's learning and development or training, that was your best module, look for jobs that say learning development assistant, learning development coordinator. I don't know what area it is that you're interested in, but look at different roles in that area or those areas. Failing that, any job that you wouldn't mind doing, short term or long term, is also a good bet. And then you can build those skills that Occ Psych need, like, your team development, your management, your anything to do with mentoring, whatever it is that you're interested in any role, you can do some or all of that as well. So yeah, keep your net wide.
Right. Okay.
I would also say as well, just think about what skills you want to develop as well.
Right.
Another way to go about it is if you're not really sure what job to approach, or there's many and you're a bit like, I don't really want to do that. Think about, in the area of occupational psychology, what skills do you want to develop and which jobs can I go to and develop those skills? And then that might not be what you traditionally thought you would, but then after 2 years or 18 months of doing that, you would have built those skills. And then hopefully by then the economy would have improved a lot more. And then there'll be more kind of occupational psychology roles as well. And then also get a mentor.
Okay.
And everyone point, get a mentor.
The big advice to you, Jasper, is find yourself. Find your center. When you will sit down with a probably recruiter or probably a hiring manager, your personality, your interest, what you are is going to come out.
Sure.
So, practice yourself first and see, like guys says, what questions will you feel more comfortable answering?
Okay.
Because in business, you're going to have a lot of people who are comfortable in their roles, and they will be looking at you as coming to help to carry on the growth. But you're also going to find a lot of people who are lost themselves. And they're going to see you in not just now, but in the future, as the answer to all their problems. Right. So you're going to have to develop some sort of skills of managing expectations from your client or from your employer. And, it's good to start now. It's good to, like Kai says, what is that ticks you? What is that beat that today interests you? It doesn't have to be the same thing for the next 20 years. Luckily, I would say the masters shows you a lot of things, to show around. I mean, for me, my hardest module was change management, and it's been feeding my family for 10 years. So, so you see, life is a little bit like a box of chocolates. But make sure that when you have a choice, you pick the one that you like.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So don't probably just jump on a job offer. Have a look before. It's is interesting in journey as well.
Got it. Thanks.
There you go.
So,
Yeah.
Jasper, what are you interested in?
At the moment, I'm looking around, but I'm keeping my options quite broad at the moment, trying to just see what there is. I have even been looking at working in the BBC in production management, but that's like just another option. I'm just seeing what I have available to me right now.
But I think because Jasper, that's kind of like an industry I'm familiar with. So I think even, you know, if you're toying with those things and that's what you're interested in, I would pursue that because, you know, being in a company is where you're going to get the experience and the skills, because there's, you know, there's only so much you can learn in the classroom doing the masters and getting the skills. Like it's actually applying them in the workplace and working with people and seeing how people interact and having those leadership roles, that's when it will all really come to life and you'll really understand all those things you learn in your masters, you know, actually what that really looks like in real life.
Okay.
So yeah, like if you're interested in that area, just getting into a company, into that space, and then you could then find your way over time, moving into sort of a position that is perhaps a more people related position or something like that. But you'll always get skills along the way that will help you. And I think that is the beauty of occupational psychology, to be honest. There's so many transferable skills and so many ways to go with it.
Great. Well, thank you. And thanks for the advice, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And on that note, as we have just passed the 1.5 hour mark and it says 35 of you left, just one more question before we start like reflections and close. There was a question from ACB about age discrimination. ACB, would you mind unmuting and sharing with us? Or we can just leave the question open. So, good speakers, age discrimination in our field, thoughts?
I think the older you are is the more, I don't know, it's changed. When I graduated, it was very much like looking at your age around how much experience you had. Whereas now, it's not traditional in that you expected to be coming from a 10-year, 15-year career history. So I'm speaking personally from just my experience. Also, because I think I look younger than my age. So when I did graduate, it was very much like, oh, is she fresh out of uni or something? But now, not so much. So maybe like 12, 15 years ago. But I don't know. It would be interesting to hear about other people's experiences and what their opinions are. But for me, I don't think it's a barrier.
I would say, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what other people are sort of thinking of me, but from my perspective, I just feel with the sort of age comes that kind of confidence, I guess, in like who you are and going back to that, you know, what you're passionate and what you're about and who you are and that kind of thing. So I think I guess you can have more confidence as you grow older, but like everybody's got different skills that they can contribute, and whatever stage you're at, whether you're, you know, fresh out of uni or whether you're like second, third career or whatever, everybody's got passions and skills that they can translate into different roles. And I guess it's you just working out, you know, what you've done and what you're passionate about, even if it is your little, you know, going back to those side hobbies that we were talking about at the beginning. What is it that really gets you interested and what gets you motivated, and trying to sort of translate that and get people excited about who you are and what you're about, I think. And to be honest, I don't think that you know, age doesn't matter. Like everybody's got interests, everybody's different, everybody's got their passions, whether you're just out of university or whether you're, you know, you've got years of experience. It's just, I guess people come at it with different skills and experience over time, but everybody's got things that they can translate into positions.
Yeah, to add to that, thanks, Lara. I think that perception is a tricky one, because I think there is some age discrimination for younger people that are trying to get into the field, less so for older people that are trying to get into the field, especially if you're on like your second or third career actually is kind of seen as like you're a bit of a safer pair of hands and all of that kind of rhetoric and those thoughts, I would say. So if you're a more mature person going into the field, don't be scared. You'll be fine. And if you're a younger person going to the field, also don't be scared. You'll be fine. But your path might be slightly different to somebody who has 10 years of experience in another industry or 15 years experience in another industry. But yeah, there are definitely perceptions of kind of like competence when it comes to age, I think, which I think are unfair sometimes. All the time, sorry.
Yeah. And Sebastian?
Well, I think back to what we were saying before, is a little bit of the expectations when it comes to dealing with a client. If you are on that role that you have that sort of 50-50 communication channel with the client and not an employer, my experience is that you need to set the boundaries and the expectations very clear from the beginning. What is the person that you want to see? Because I have collaborators that they were younger than me, and I had clients that they said to me, I'd rather you do it and not the young woman or the young man that is working with you. And I found that incredibly offensive. So I came back to my client and explained the reasons why I did that. 99% of the case, they back off and they said, "Oh, okay, I understand." And the 1% that you're gonna find out there that, like Grace says, embraces those old beliefs that things should be in one way and no other way. Maybe it's a good thing that you just walk away from it. Yeah, because you don't want that toxicity to permeate all other areas of your work. That is my professional experience. On a personal side, you will find again that the fitness of yourself and the role is a very important indicator when you're doing the interview process. If you don't feel comfortable, maybe it's not the right place for you. And if this is something that it shows up within the interview process, maybe it's telling you a part of a bigger picture that you're gonna find only when you get inside the organization. So be mindful. Be mindful. I mean, you don't have to take every job. Unless you're starving to death and something like that. But even so, I will think twice today. Having my own experience with mental health being affected by being in the wrong role, carefully, a little bit carefully for the future. Hope that helped.
Excellent. And on that cheerful note, we have one more question. Self-care, nobody canceled Maslow, absolutely. And Monica.
It's not just a question, it's more observation about the age part. What I observed about the university. So if you are very young, they try to discourage you because they believe that you are not fit for that position. And especially find in Cambridge at my university that you go naively there that you want to be a clinical psychologist, and the teachers say that, oh, it's very hard, it's very competitive, it's very disappointing, don't even try because you will fail. So that is the most sneaky part, that they try you to put you down as much as possible. If you have the consistency and you show up, you don't have to be perfect. Showing up, making your job, how you do it in your level, because so many are not English natives and they are struggling. Keep going, keep going. Visualize that position when you succeed and you can smile so kindly to your teacher who didn't believe in you that you did it. You do it. That is the most rewarding part. And I see there that, okay, you don't have so much, just 1 second, endorsement. In your inside, you know what you want to do. Learn, read, and upskill yourself in that area. The result will come. It's a test, let's say. If you really want it, you will have so much challenge about that to see that you are committed. After that line, you will laugh just like a joker and it's dangerous because you succeeded, but the commitment is the most important. I am adult, so I am 44, and I was on the other side of when I go to the university and I see everyone is 19 years old and I am like old mama and I say, what the hell I am doing here? But then I realized I want this. I want to change the profile. I know how to do things. I have the experience, so I will do it. So keep going what you have, why you started.
Perfect. And that's a beautiful note to finish up on. So thank you, Monica. I'm just
Welcome.
curious. So what are your takeaways from today? So whether you can write them down in mentees, what are you taking forwards? What's the takeaway? What the thoughts? Or just feel to unmute yourself and just jump in. What are you taking away from the last 1.5 hours and 43 minutes? But who's counting? Right, iPhone. Yeah.
Sorry. Just a quick one to say, came into this call very kind of demotivated after I've spent a year unsuccessfully searching for a job in industry, following graduation from my master's degree. But yeah, the mountains of useful advice is one thing for the head knowledge of how to proceed from here. But just an understanding that it's a relatable experience to struggle, and that everyone has been through tough times. The last couple of decades have not been excellent, and so yeah, it's very encouraging to know that there are very, very accomplished people here as our panelists who have similarly struggled. So thank you all very, very much.
Absolutely, and the struggle is real. And if companies worked really well and perfectly, there'd be no jobs for us. So that's also to keep in mind. Thank you, Alexandra. And just Andrea, I noticed your hand up.
Hi, I'm so sorry. My laptop in the middle of the meeting decided to don't work. But thank you very much. One of the main takeaways that I get from this meeting is how all of you as panelists gave us all your knowledge that you have, all the path you've been through. But I think it's also important what you mentioned, Nikita, and I think all of you have mentioned that, is don't keep your personal self aside of the professional wise, as you mentioned with LinkedIn, not just putting like aspiring occupational psychologist, like write about yourself, like research about what you like. And also Sebastian also mentioned about how in an interview, it's also important to give your own personal point of view. So that's one of the takeaways that I get, to do that balance and motivation also. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. Absolutely, just keep going and you will develop yourself. You will change with time what you're interested in, who you are, and allow yourself to change that self-narrative. It's called a narrative for a reason. It's a story we tell ourselves about ourselves. It's worth updating. So, but we also have that any experience is relevant experience. Absolutely. Whack it onto your LinkedIn. That all we are worth it and pick most skills are. But actually, I would just love to hear from each one of our wonderful speakers what stands out for them and just words of wisdom they'd like to leave us on. So, in no particular order, Lara.
I would say, words of wisdom. I think when you're obviously trying to find a career, it can be really scary, and especially when you're doing it in my position, second career, third career. But I mean, it can be it definitely is at the beginning as well. So it's scary. There's a lot of change happening, and I think just take it step by step and don't be afraid that you don't know all the answers. I still don't know the answers. I still don't know exactly where I'm going to go. And I think you've kind of got to embrace that uncertainty and kind of be a bit excited about it, because you just don't know who you're going to talk to, who you're going to meet, what jobs are going to come up. And I think for me, that feels exciting. So just take it step by step. Give yourself those little challenges, like, okay, today I'm just going to talk to this person. Today I'm going to research these job roles, and just see where it takes you. Don't give yourself this really massive goal that just puts you under so much stress, and then you just like freak yourself out over it. Just take it step by step, and who knows where you'll be in 6 months' time. You just don't know, and I think that's exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah, because each of your journeys is going to be unique. It's already unique. And we have no idea where it's going to end up. And it's a numbers game. So if you want to connect with people on LinkedIn, send 10 invites a day. Out of those, 3 might be accepted and 1 person is going to reply. but don't send like one invite, they didn't come back to you, it's all for nothing. So just keep going. It's a numbers game. So just make sure to do a little bit every day. It'll make your life a lot easier. Or LinkedIn can make it also easier. So as previously mentioned, write down like 15 topics you're interested in. Human factors, psychometrics, culture, all of this. Whack it into LinkedIn job search and set up alerts. It's a little blue slidey bar underneath the word. So then anytime a job comes up with this, you'll get notification. But of course, if you have psychometrics in the job description, quite often it's like a rail engineer. I'm sure that close to Grace's heart, because it says you need to complete psychometrics as part of the job application. But sometimes it will come up as like hire psychologist in civil service. By the way, a graduate role in UK in civil service in Occ Psych is called hire occupational psychologist. Like that makes so much sense. But the key thing is that set up those alerts and you'll be notified. And also if you find like head of assessment, but what the company does looks really interesting, reach out to people working in that company. And my rule of thumb is whenever you're applying to a job, let's say EY, Deloitte, what have you, as well as an application, find 10 colleagues at Deloitte who have an Occ Psych background and send them connection requests. So even if that company ghosts you, you still have 3 connections from that company as a result of the application. So that sense of progress and going forwards, even if you're not getting jobs, you're building that network. So perfect. Thank you, Laura. Kate, what are your closing thoughts, remarks?
Firstly, thank you, Nikita, for organising this. It's always really interesting and useful. I feel like I've given back a little bit of my squiggly career. So my reflections are, just kind of echoing what the other speakers have said, but just don't view your career as linear or set in stone. It's squiggly, and you'll never know where you'll end up. So if you have that kind of open, if you approach it in that open perspective, I think a lot of the angst will be taken out. So if you apply to a graduate scheme and get rejected, it's okay, it's fine. What are the other things that I'm interested in? Because I've got this list of things that I'm interested in. So what other things can I look at? And then what I think for me that stood out was just how much talent there is in psychology out there waiting to kind of get snapped up by these companies. So again, just keep going and you will get lots. It will be fruitful in the end. I remember when I started, I couldn't get a role for about 2 years, and I just ended up just going and working freelance. And I was just like, okay, when it changes, it will happen. And then I was lucky enough because of that squiggly approach. At the time, it was very painful and a lot of anxiety. But I was able to kind of meet a lot of interesting connections, work with people that I never thought I would work with, and just, again, just keep going. You never know where you're going to end up, and connect with many other occupational psychologists, because there's something around having that kind of peer network to have a conversation with, to be able to find out, like, what's been this experience like, or what would you suggest? And then people that are really knowledgeable in the field, like Nikita, Grace, the other speakers as well. But yeah, that's mine. I'm also really hungry and tired now, so sorry, I'm rambling.
We won't keep you longer if you need to switch
No,
off.
no, I'm just saying, if I sounded rambly, that's why. I was just thinking, oh, I haven't had dinner, I should eat dinner.
Absolutely. I'm sure we're all hungry. So yeah. And Sebastian?
I think my final thought is a thank you to all of you, because when you are in the race and you are like me, somewhere before your retirement day, you tend to forget your origins. You tend to forget where you're coming from. And having these conversations made me reflect on what the journey was for me, and understand that there is merit in every step of the way, if you can find it. So like everybody says, don't be discouraged. The opportunity is out there. It's the game of finding it, but also allow the opportunity to find you. And the only way you can do that is by getting to know other people. You know, jobs comes when people believe in you, and that's what happened to me at least. And you know, and when you push yourself to meet the criteria of a challenging role that you find somewhere. So it's a mix of both, you know. But like Monica was saying, you know, don't dare to dream too big. Just do it. Just do it. There are so many opportunities, and maybe one day you're gonna be part of a panel of people, you know, doing career change, and maybe you're gonna be able to relate to your experience. Life is incredibly dynamic, and it's about, you know, having that goodwill, good personality going out, you know, in every interview, good attitude. That can make a big difference. So thank you.
Yeah, because people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And yeah, and be nice to others and yourself as much as we can. And last but not least, Grace, what are your parting thoughts?
Got so many thoughts. One of the things is that I've said before, don't be discouraged. Like there's always a way, even if you decide to leave. I mean, you don't really leave Occ Psych because it goes everywhere with you. So even if you do a different job, that job, there'll be aspects of Occ Psych that you bring into that job. That could be the evidence base, the research base. It could be managing teams and people. It could be helping someone with their career that's in your team. You're never going to get rid of it. So don't feel like if you do something else, I think there were some people in the chat that were talking about like what has account management got to do with Occ Psych. Like every job has Occ Psych in it. So don't feel like you've wasted your degree. I've heard that a lot because you're not in a role that says Occ Psych. I've been working for many years, over 15 years, and it's only last year that I got a job with the title Organizational Psychology. I've never had that job title before, but it doesn't mean the work that I'm doing in this job is that different from the work that I've done in other jobs over the last over 15 years. So it's not the be all and end all if you don't have a job title that matches your degree. You make your job into something that you like, and that can change and that can evolve. So just stick with it and just keep doing what you feel is right for you.
Excellent. And that's a perfect note to finish on. So if we can have a round of applause for Lara, Kay, Sebastian, Grace, all the wonderful attendees who have made it today and participated. Jasper, you're unmuting yourself and you turned on video. Would you like to say a couple of words?
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to turn on the audio.
Oh, that's a bit anticlimactic. So what do you want to say?
I mean, I guess I'd just say thanks, everyone, and thank you for the session.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jasper, for coming and your engagement. Thank you, everybody. We will be doing the things on quite regular basis. So just follow me on LinkedIn. And also, if there's any particular topic you want to hear more about, send me a message. And do check out our YouTube channel. We have over 4 years of such workshops up there, from everything second career, how to stand out as an applicant, all of that stuff. So next time you have trouble falling asleep, you know what to listen to. Otherwise, thank you, everyone. Wishing you everybody a wonderful evening. Good Halloween, and hopefully that this session made looking for jobs in Occ Psych a little bit less scary.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikita. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Nikita.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely to see you all.
Thank you, the panelists.
Great.